Today I'm going to be taking a look at a Dashcam. It's the latest model from Vico who've revised their entire range, and this is their newest camera, the Marcus III. Now the big claim to fame for the Marcus III is the fact that it records at 1296p. They're calling that XHD. They've also got HSFHD, and that's 1080p but at 60 frames a second. Now I've had success with the Vico range before. The WF1 was a great camera, as was the TF2 Plus. That was especially good at nighttime photography. So I'm hoping that this one is equally as good, if not better. As well as the camera, they've supplied me with a GPS mouse, which is basically a GPS antenna, and a circular polarizing lens filter. Now let's just look at those resolutions again for a second. So normal 1080p is 1920 by 1080, that's 2 megapixels. If you're looking at 1296p, it's 2304 by 1296, that's about 2.9 megapixels, which is basically 44% more pixels in each frame than 1080p. If you're interested in reading detailed specs, pause the screen now and have a look at the back of the box, and here's the side of the box as well, but I'll be covering all the interesting things during the course of this video. The first thing I want to talk about is this GPS mouse. That's a sticky back adhesive on that end, goes somewhere on your windshield. That end is a USB mini B plug that plugs into the camera, and it adds some additional features to the camera. Obviously it gets the GPS information, but in addition to that you've got a lane detection warning system, forward collision warning system, and an overspeed warning system. Basically the camera will beep if you exceed any of the tolerances that you've set in the camera's menus. I'll show you a little bit more about that later on. You can position the GPS mouse stroke antenna away from the camera, somewhere in the car where it gets a decent satellite signal. Mine came with 2 meters of wire. Now let's have a look at the camera itself. I'm not going to do a full unboxing, we'll just show you what's inside the box. So there you go, and that's what comes in it. Notice the spare adhesive pad at the back there. This thing here is a warranty card, which was all stamped up when I got mine, which was nice. You get a full instruction booklet which has proper pictures, decent explanations, and it's all written in good clear English. A lot better than the kind of instruction pamphlets that you get in some of the cheap cameras. But then again, this is more of a premium dash cam. Now the power supply is 12 volt and 24 volt, which is useful for people that drive big rigs, trucks, HGVs, because they're often 24 volt. It's very nicely put together as well. The USB lead is a standard mini B, and it's at a right angle and it goes upwards like that, so you can put it across the headlining of your car. The wire on mine was 4 meters or 13 foot long. Now we'll just look at some of the mounting options for the camera before we get it all switched on. So that's everything we've got, and we can sort of mix and match with these a little bit. First off, this is the quick release holder. The camera can just click in the back of there like that, and that obviously just stays on your windscreen, and you just remove the camera from it when you park up or when you want to take it away. Now that also gives you the ability to screw in this circular polarizing lens filter. The idea of this is it cuts down on reflections on your windscreen that maybe come from your dashboard consoles and things. And that goes in there, and you can clip that into the suction cup if you want and put that on your windscreen. And you can also put that one into there, and then you can just clip the camera straight into that. Notice that one's got a bend in it, that little piece there. And then if we take the camera out of the quick release cradle, I suppose, it just slides into the front, because the camera's also got the same mounting system on the camera itself. And of course you can release it from that by just clicking it out, but sliding it out to that thing. So that's the bent one there, as you can see. And I've also got a straight piece here, and that adhesive there, you can swap that out if you want. If you don't want to go for the suction cup at all and just go for the short one with a bit of adhesive on it, that makes it even smaller, of course, because the suction cup adds a bit of distance away from your windscreen. And then you can also put one that's got a little bit of a curve on it if you want to get the angle right on the rake of your windscreen. So you can sort of mix these things, as I mentioned. This one, if you try and put it onto that sticky back one, I found that I couldn't get it on my windscreen. I couldn't get it pointing forward enough. It pointed down just because of the way that little bit bends at the top. I couldn't get the angle just right. So let's have a look at the different sizes of these things. So that's it with the sticky back thing on there. That's what it looks like in the quick release thing, with the filter on the front and the suction cup on the top. As you can see, quite a big thing when you put it in that, and quite a bit smaller when you use the sticky back one. Now, when you plug it in that, or clip it in that, remember you've got wires as well, of course, so you can't just sort of unclip it. You'd have to unplug all those wires, especially if you got them stuck into your car at the top there. So you'd have to unplug 2 wires and then unclip it to get it out of that. It's very nicely made, this camera, very well put together, feels really solid, good quality. The micro SD card goes in there, and this side we've got the HD out, which is for a mini HDMI, standard USB mini B for the power data transfer, then the other one for the GPS at the bottom, all clearly labelled, all nice and sensible. The top there, that's the little clip that holds into that quick release cradle thing, and across the bottom here we've got all the buttons. We'll just put the power into this one just to show you. It powers up. Look at the top, you've got a green LED which lights up to start with, and then the camera sort of goes through a bit of a booting thing. So once it's booted up, you get a little splash screen at the beginning there to tell you what camera you've got. Makes a little noise if you want it to. You can switch it off, I think, and then it comes on, starts recording. You can see the red dot at the top left of the screen, red light at the top as well. And you've got those icons along the bottom which tell you what the different buttons do below. Obviously that one is record, so if we tap it we stop the recording, and then tap it again it starts. Very quick response on that one. Left one's emergency, which will store an emergency clip. That one turns the mic on and off. As you can see there, just tap it. Now it's hard to see this actually. You get a beep, but also that little microphone at the top goes green when it's recording and grey when it isn't. Obviously the right hand one would turn it off, and then the middle one gets into the menus. So we're going to the menus, very clearly laid out, very simple, easy to understand. You've got an up and down at the bottom here, an OK and a back on the orange key there. As you can see, you just go through them. It's only this one screen of things, very clearly laid out and sensible. So going to the resolutions first of all. You can see there 1296p at 30 frames a second, then 1080p at 60, 1080p at 30, 720p at 60, and over the page 720p at 30 frames a second. So pick the one you want and then just drop out of that menu. Exposure value I just leave at 0. It automatically sorts out the exposure. Very good on that as well, so no need to mess with it. This one, the GPS functions, quite a few things in here. You can set up the GPS, the G-Sense. This is the one where if the camera feels a shock it will store a recording in the emergency folder. GPS setting, quite a few things in here. First off, have a look, that's the satellites that I'm picking up. This is in the house. I've got the GPS antenna just on the windowsill, so that's good. But down here we've got a thing where we can change the GPS speed overlay. You can have the speed on or off, kilometers per hour. That's all at the moment. Might do an update on that in the future, perhaps to have miles per hour. Smart warning system. This is the stuff where there's quite a few options. Lane detection warning. Mentioned that earlier on. You can have that on or off. Forward collision warning on or off. If you select this one, you can change your lane detection warning, what speed you want it to start activating at. So we'll leave that off. Forward collision warning system. Again, similar thing. You can go into that and you can have it only working at over certain speeds. And then over speed notice, if you go over this speed, again it will beep once when you do it. 130 kilometers, that's just over 80 miles an hour. That's the top option on there. And then there's a speed camera warning thing here where I think in some countries there must be a database you can put in the camera which would tell you where speed cameras are, but I don't know how to do that, to be honest. So those are all the things in the GPS menus there. There's quite a few things in there. That's probably the most complicated part of it. To be honest, I got most of those things switched off. Display, you can have the time it takes for the LCD to turn off. You can have it always stay on, or as I prefer, just have it go off after a minute as soon as you start driving. You don't want a screen in your face blinding you. However, talking of that, you can adjust the brightness of the screen from standard down to low, so you might be able to use it at night without it getting in the way. Date stamp, you can have a date stamp on or off, rather obviously, and Vico tag, that's where you'd put a reg number in or some kind of identification. I put Techmoan 1. You might see that at the bottom left of some of the clips that I'll show you later on, and I've also done some others with the timestamp on and off and things. You can inverse the image and you can mirror the image as well in that menu. So we'll just drop out of that one. Not much to go now. Audio, obviously you can have the audio on or off, and the volume control is for the beep of the camera. If you want it to beep when you press the buttons, you can adjust that, make it louder or turn it off entirely. Playback, obviously, playback clips you've recorded earlier on. You can see them on the screen here. Those are all white because I've recorded quite a few shots of this white table that's behind the camera. So we'll move up a page, get to some real things I recorded earlier on. Select one of those, you can play it, lock it, delete it, or go back. And if you play it, you can see it on the screen here. It comes through obviously with the sound. This clip wasn't recorded with sound, that's why you can't hear anything. And you can fast forward and rewind and skip to the next clip, everything that you might want to do if you wanted to play back a clip whilst you're out and about. And then finally, the last thing, we'll just drop out of this menu, and I'll just show you the system information one here. So if we go down there, right, you can change the clock time. Now, you can do it manually, but if you plug in the GPS antenna, it will pull through the time from the GPS antenna, but you've got to have the time zone right. I'm GMT +1 at the moment. If I do GMT 0, it gets the time wrong. TV system, that's just for playback, don't worry about that. Those are languages. I'll go through these just to show you what they are, and then the next, I'll just talk about the next thing down while this is going on, because that's not very interesting. You'll notice there's a format option in the menu. Remember, always format your cards in the camera and not on your computer. If you get one of these, get your micro SD card, put it in the camera, go into this menu, format the card in the camera. And then default would set everything back to standard, what it came as out of the box without all the changes you've made. And that's it. So those are all the menus in the camera. It's a very simple, easy camera to operate and to understand. Right, I'm going to show you some sample footage, but I want to be clear about what you're looking at here. I uploaded this video review to YouTube as a 1080p 30 file. That means you won't be able to see the 1296p samples at their full resolution, or the 1080p 60 samples at their proper frame rate. If you want to see those, you'll have to download some clips from my website. There's a link in the video description. Also bear in mind that YouTube will have re-encoded these, so the video quality might have been reduced a little bit as well. Right, I hope I've switched the microphone on. I pressed the button before and I can't really see from where I'm sat whether I've got it on or off. I suppose that is a slight criticism because the beep makes the same sound whether I switch it on or off, but anyway, regardless, hopefully the sound is being recorded, and it's quite amusing really that this thing is recording at the moment in 1296p. It's the highest resolution of any video camera I've got, and it's in a Dashcam. The sound that you were listening to there was recorded on the Marcus III's built-in microphone, and I think you'll agree that it's pretty decent quality. Now, I had this camera in my car for a good couple of weeks, and I drove around all over the place, and I had some really nice sunny weather too, so I got quite a bit of interesting footage for you to look at. I'm going to tell you at the top left corner like now what each video was originally shot in, but of course remember the disclaimer before that you're going to be looking at this at 1080p 30 at best. But you can see the detail on this scene here with the scooter on the left hand side, all the cars in front, a nice wide angle image. I think it's supposed to be 160 degrees. And it's certainly it fills out the whole of my windscreen. You can see that both wipers in front of the car there, right from the front left to the front right, and as much as you want to see. So it's a really good, nice, wide, clear image, and of course you can read those signs above the road there as well. And if you paused it, you could have a look at those registration numbers. The camera is very good at adjusting light and dark. Let's have a look here. We'll just go into this. Notice how it very quickly deals with that. It's just like looking at it through your eyes, really. Sometimes cameras are a bit poor at this kind of thing. Now I'll just go back to myself again in the car because I just want to say a little word to the camera. Right, I've stopped here so we can do a little bit of an eye test with the registration numbers in front of me. I'm going to film this scene in the different resolutions, and if you look at the registration numbers you'll be able to see how much difference that makes to the clarity. Demonstrating this turned out to be a lot more complicated than I expected. You see, the iMovie package that I use when I import the XHD 1296p files, it just downscales them to 1080p 30, so there's no way of me demonstrating in iMovie what the quality looks like. So what I've had to do here is put the files on my computer and then do a screen capture. But the thing is, my screen doesn't go up to that resolution. So what I've had to do is show you the files first of all. As you can see here are the different files. That was 1080p 30, this is 1080p 60, and this is the 1296p, and then the final one is a 720p 60 file. So they all look the same at the moment because they're all squashed down to fit on my laptop screen. However, when I make them the size that they're supposed to be, that's what the 720p looks like on my laptop screen. And then this is what a 1080p 60 looks like on the laptop screen. That's the real size, and same with the 1080p 30. So that's what they look like. They kind of go off the edge of the screen, and that's the quality. So we'll go back to the 1296p XHD and make that actual size, and that's what that one looks like. Now you can see a subtle difference. If you look at the registration numbers in front, they are a little bit more legible at 1296p than they are at 1080p, but then again they kind of should be. So there's not a massive difference in my opinion. The bit rates this camera uses are quite interesting because at 1080p 30 it records at 14 megabits a second. Now 1080p 60 effectively twice the frame rate, you'd think twice the megabits, but no, it only goes up to 18.5 megabits a second. That's probably a bit of a limitation of the speed of memory cards. 1296p 30, again 18.5 megabits a second, which is probably right. It's in keeping with the 1080p 30 resolution plus about 30-40%. Now I had this camera in my car for a few weeks. I was going around testing all the different resolutions and things. As I mentioned earlier, you won't be able to see that this is a 60 frame per second video because you'll be looking at it at 30 frames a second, but it really is 60 frames a second, which looks particularly good on my computer when you've got it full screen, very smooth. It's nice to see 1080p at 60 frames a second. Now the low bitrate can sometimes cause blocking or mosaicing in shadowy areas, like going under these trees for example. This is quite complicated for a camera because it means that every frame's got a lot of different changes compared to the previous one, and therefore there's not enough bitrate to go around, so they start blocking a bit. It's a common thing that happens on a lot of cameras, and especially on the Sony action cameras at 60 frames a second. Look at this, I've slowed this down. Look in the shadowy areas on the right, you'll see that it does start to block or mosaic a little bit. Now, I've mentioned this to the manufacturers. They're always doing new firmware updates, and I think it's something that they are aware of, and they'll see what they can do to improve that a little bit. That's a good thing with Vico. They always seem to be updating the firmware for their camera. They don't just bring it out and leave it. If there's anything that they think they can improve, they will try and do that. But if you get on the motorway, see, not so much going on, no shadows or any of that business, really nice and sharp and clear, 1080p 60. And 60 frames a second enables you to freeze moments in time really still like this, and then zoom in and look how sharp that is. And that's because you've got 60 separate frames a second, therefore each one is a 60th of a second. If you grab one of those frames out, you're more likely to get a nice sharp image with no motion blur than if you were to grab a frame out of a 30 frame per second video. Now let's try that again just one more time on this roundabout here. We'll freeze it here and have a look at the signs on the left. There you go, World of Glass. I bet you can have a smashing time there. Now the AFFLIATED high speed full HD, i.e. 1080p 60 mode, might be more of a killer feature than the XHD 1296p mode in my opinion. Anyway, 1080p 30, it's as brilliant as it always is on these cameras. This one particularly so because going under these trees here where you get a lot of that shadowy stuff I mentioned that might trip up the 1080p 60 video, it won't have as big of an effect on the 1080p 30 because you've got more bit rate per frame than you do on the 60 frame per second mode. So you might find if you did a freeze frame here, you get a better quality freeze frame out of the 1080p 30 than you did out of the 1080p 60 in these shadowy areas. But I'm only really nitpicking here. I mean, this is an excellent camera. As you can see, it's doing a really good job. I mean, these are brilliant quality images for any camera really. Even if you've got a proper action camera, you'd be quite happy with this quality of footage. You remember, this is just a dash cam that really you're not going to look at this footage unless you had a crash or something amazing happen in front of you, which is a bit of a shame really. Now, a nice sunny day like this will show any camera at its best. However, it can sometimes trip cameras up as well when you drive into the sun, like I am doing now. Some other cameras I've tested in the past would go completely dark in a scene like this because they try and compensate and reduce the exposure so that the sun is the right brightness. This camera is doing the perfect thing. It's basically ignoring the sun, carrying on recording at the exposure it was doing before, and everything looks as good as it could possibly look. It couldn't do a better job than it's doing right now. Now you'll be able to see the reflections in the windscreen of the vents at the front of the window. There's the GPS mouse in the middle there, and sort of towards the top middle right there's a circular red thing, and that's the top of the dash console. These are the kind of things that people want to try and get rid of by putting one of those circular polarizing filters on the front. I'll be honest, I've used it with and without. It makes a very subtle difference, and it is a little bit better with it on, but it doesn't completely eradicate all the reflections in the windscreen. It just reduces them slightly. However, there is a little bit of a thing it does at night time, which I'll show you later on. Just a quick word about those additional GPS features, the lane detection, forward collision and overspeed warnings. I didn't find those to be too much use for me. The lane detection warning is supposed to beep if you drift out of your lane. Perhaps maybe more use to someone driving a big truck like one of these for a living, and over time they might lose concentration. It's not something that I really plan on doing. The forward collision warning, that's supposed to beep once if you get too close to the car in front. I found that mine was beeping quite frequently because I was on the motorway and people pulled in front of my car, and that set the beep off. It got really pretty annoying pretty quickly, and I turned it off at the first services I got to. I did leave on the overspeed warning, which beeps if I get to about 80 to 83 miles an hour. Let's just take a break from driving for a moment and have a look at some of the video specs. Now, the clip's recorded in 5-minute segments. It's completely seamless, but you can't adjust those 5 minutes. The format is MOV. You'll need a micro SD card, which can either be SDHC or SDXC, class 10 or higher. It doesn't mention a maximum size, so I'm assuming you can use whatever size you want. The file sizes are shown there, therefore you can figure out how much you could fit on whatever memory card you were planning on using. And there's the standard features that every dashcam has. This one obviously has all of those, and if you're new to dashcams, please watch my beginner's guide to car cameras video, and that's in my channel. Okay, so we're out in the car again. It's just after 10:30 at night. I waited till this time so that the light was completely out of the sky, and we're in total darkness. Of course, we're not at the moment because we've got street lights, and of course we've got my car headlights, but in a moment I'll be driving down a lane with no street lights on it, so it'll just be illuminated by the car headlights, and we'll see how it performs. Now, the Vico range, from previous experience, does really well in low light conditions, so I'm not expecting this one to do anything other than an excellent job. I just want to cut in on myself here because I want to mention 3 things. The first one is, I just said the words Vico range. Now, before that, before the word Vico, there was a join in between 2 clips. And you won't have noticed that there was a join because they are completely seamless, as I just mentioned before. The second thing is, look how the center console is getting reflected in the windscreen every time I go under one of these street lights. It's a bit irritating, isn't it? I'll do something about that in a moment. But the third thing is, look how great this is for nighttime footage. It is completely dark outside, there's no light in the sky, and we've just got the street lights, and this is excellent. You don't get better nighttime footage than this. After watching my first lot of nighttime recording, I decided I'd have to take the car out again. The reason is because the nighttime recording was so good, I wanted to see how it coped if the polarising filter was left on the camera. The first time I recorded at night time, I took the filter off as recommended by the manufacturers, because the filter can make the scene a little bit dimmer because it's got a bit of a tint in it, and therefore you won't get the best nighttime quality possible. However, I thought the nighttime quality was really pretty good, and I did also notice quite a few reflections off the lights and things showing back up into the lens. You can see the centre parts of my dash console reflected in the window. So I thought I'd put that filter on, maybe it'd help, and I also wanted to see how it affected the level of light that got into the lens. I definitely call this experiment a success because we've reduced the reflections down from that centre console, and also we've been able to leave the filter on so we don't have to mess around taking it off, and we can still see perfectly fine what's going on outside. Now, I did notice the filter itself rattles a little bit, so if you can hear any of that on the soundtrack, it's not the camera, the mounting, it's that little filter which might need a bit of tape on it just to stop it rattling. Now, as you can see now, I've entered an area where there are no lights on the street. I've just got my full beam on here, and that's what's lighting the road up. Now, one of the things about this particular camera, the firmware I've got on it, apparently, if you've got your camera set in a 60 frame per second mode for daytime footage, if it spots that it's gone dark, it'll reduce it down into a 30 frame per second moment to get the best quality for low light. So that's a nice feature that I haven't seen in any other cameras before. So here's what the camera looks like inside my vehicle. As you can see, quite noticeable, quite large in the windscreen, although I do have quite a small car. I think this would be more at home in a large truck, a HGV, or a big rig as Americans would call it, you know, the kind of thing, not a little car like this, because it does seem to take up quite a big space on the windscreen. That said, it is behind my rear view mirror, so when I'm on the driver's side over there, it doesn't get in the way at all. And of course, if I was doing it properly, I probably wouldn't have it on this quick release mount. The quick release mount does give you the benefit of having the circular polarizing filter, which is definitely something that I think I'd probably miss if I didn't have it on the camera, because it does cut down on reflections quite a bit at certain times. However, the camera could be quite a bit smaller if you just use it with one of its smaller mounts, like this one here. And if you could stick it to that, put that in your windscreen, stick it up there somewhere, it would be a little bit smaller, a bit more out of the way. However, it's still going to be quite noticeable in your windscreen, so if you have one of these, you'd either have to be prepared to unclip it, take it out of your car every time you park up, or live in a part of the world where people don't fiddle around with things that are left in people's cars. And believe it or not, there are some parts of the world like that. Unfortunately, I don't live in one of them, but if you do, then this is definitely worth considering, because of course it's a very good dash cam. But I'll put it back in my polarizing filter mount, because I'm going to be using it for the rest of the day, because I still have a little bit more test footage to shoot. So whilst he's off messing around, I'll show you how you attach this camera up to a television. You'll need to buy your own mini HDMI lead, and you'll also need to have a USB lead in the camera to power it, because this camera doesn't have a built-in battery. Once you've got those things attached, you can attach it up to a TV, and you can play back the videos just like you could in the menu in the camera. You cannot record whilst an HDMI lead is attached, but it works fine for playback. Vico GPS-enabled playback software can be downloaded from their website. It's called Vico Player. Unfortunately for me, it's Windows only. I don't have a decent Windows machine at the moment, so I'm going to show you a still frame from it, and you can see what's going on here. Just imagine this was moving along. There'd be video at the top left. On the right hand side, you've got the map pulled through from Google. Of course, you have to have an internet connection whilst you're using this to be able to pull the map data through. At the bottom, you've got a speedo, miles per hour or kilometers per hour, and your G sensors at the bottom left, and you select the files at the top right. The GPS data is stored on the memory card right next to each video file with the same name but an extension NMEA. If you look inside one of those files, you can see all the data is contained inside there. So I'd imagine if you had a preferred piece of GPS playback software, you could probably load these files into that instead. If you press the orange emergency button on the front of the camera, it creates a new 1-minute file that starts 30 seconds before you press the button and finishes 30 seconds after. It then moves that 1-minute file into a separate folder on the camera that won't get overwritten. Now, talking about those buttons, I do find that they're a little bit close together for my fingers. It's too easy for me to press 2 or 3 buttons at once. They could perhaps do with putting a dimple on the middle one so that you could at least feel where your finger was. I also found it a little bit difficult to determine whether I'd got the sound recording on or off. The beep when you turn it on or off is exactly the same, and the indicator on the screen is either a light colour of green or a light colour of grey, which are pretty difficult to determine from one another when the sun's in your face. A couple of points I should repeat here. Remember, the polarising filter and the GPS mouse are optional extras. They're not included in the standard pack. Now, the mouse, as well as giving you those different warning features and pulling the map data through, can also overlay the location and the speed at the bottom left of the video. Now, you can either have that on there or you can have the plate number, but you can't have the location or the speed as well as the plate number. You've got to choose between those two things, or you can switch it all off, of course, if you want. So to summarise, on the positive side, well, there's a lot here. The video quality is excellent day and night. The sound quality is good as well. 1080p 60 mode enables you to get really sharp freeze frames out of your video. It's very easy to use. It's got multiple mounting options inside the box. It doesn't run off a battery. It might have a battery back memory and time and date and things, but it doesn't run off a battery, which is one less thing to fail. It's got a 12-stroke 24-volt charger in the box, which is good for people that drive trucks and things, and it's really well put together. On the negative side, not so much here really. The only thing I can think of is it's pretty noticeable in the windscreen. It's quite a large device. It's got very closely spaced buttons, which are a little bit fiddly. And I think that 1296p is only a very subtle improvement over 1080p. I didn't really notice much difference at all. Now there's a good chance that the quality of the video that this camera can produce will improve over time with various firmware updates. But if you're not interested in 1296p or 1080p 60 for that matter, you might be able to save yourself a bit of money and get a Marcus 1 instead. It has all the other features that this camera has. I think it's got a slightly narrower lens at 140 compared to 160 degrees, but other than that it's pretty much the same camera, just missing those two features. If you're interested in buying this camera, you can find some links in the video description, and then there's more over on my blog at techmoan.com, where you'll also find some downloadable sample clips. So there you go, that was my very long look at the Marcus 3 camera, another excellent dash camera from Vico. Now hopefully when it comes out they'll give me the opportunity to take a look at their Marcus 5 dual camera as well. So far I've yet to find a decent dual camera, and if anyone can make one I'm pretty sure Vico can. So hopefully that'll come along sometime in the future, but for the moment, as always, thanks for watching.